Tonight's episode of AEW Dark here on TEW 2020 will feature Kazarian in action against Brian Pillman Jr. We'll also have Thunder Rosa against Ty Conti in women's action, and also Sean Spears puts his AEW Internet Championship on the line against Warhorse. Welcome everyone to another edition of AEW Dark. What a great night of action we have lined up for you. Brian Pillman Jr. returns to AEW tonight as he aims to get back on track. And we have Sean Spears defending his Internet Championship yet again, this time against Warhorse, who rolls ass. And that's not all. Thunder Rosa is back and ready to take on Ty Conti. Plus, we'll hear from Taz, who isn't too happy with the way Brian Cage's match with Spears went down the other week. So we are hot off the heels of that Blood and Guts pay-per-view on the weekend. We are heading into a brand new week. We are now on the road to Double or Nothing. And in about that had good heat, decent wrestling. We get Dark off to a good start as Brian Pillman Jr. picks up his first win since returning against Kazarian after a tornado DDT. And Brian Pillman Jr. just edging the in-ring performance there against Kazarian, which is really interesting to see. Just hope he can put all the drug taking and everything that's been going on behind the scenes behind him now, and just, well, if I could give him a little bit of a run, put something together, maybe he'll try and forget about all that. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. Up next, in a terrible match, Thunder Rosa defeats Ty Conti. We know these two will put on a great show, although look at that, Thunder Rosa, Ty Conti, they have great chemistry and it showed in their performances, so that's something to note, something to take away from Dark this week. We then see both Taz and Brian Cage stood backstage. Taz goes on to say, "Sean, my boy, you're a lucky bloke. The other week, you put that internet title of yours on the line against the Machine here. Both of you tore it up. What sickens me, though, is you knew you were this close to losing that title of yours. And what did you do? You took the fight to the outside, luring Cage here into your little trap for a double count-out. For playing those silly little games, we're invested in you and that title now. Cage here, he wants you again. Next week, here on Dark, in a street fight." So there we go. Taz and Cage walk off. Taz throwing it down, issuing the challenge to Sean Spears once again. So here next week on Dark, Brian Cage wants Sean Spears. That is, of course, if Spears can defend his title successfully against Warhorse. Janela Justice picking up some steam here as a tag team. The team of Joey Janela and Matthew Justice. They do overcome Top Flight here. It was about that didn't have much heat. Terrible wrestling. It ended in 9 minutes 36. It was Janela that pinned Darius with a moonsault foot stomp. And the match was poorly placed. But Janela did come out of the match looking good. So that is a positive. We got 42. That's pretty strong. And then ahead of Spears against Warhorse, Mance Warner is seen once again taking up a seat front row with a beer cooler. He begins handing out a few cans and enjoys one or two of his own. Sean Spears watches on as the bell rings for the main event of Dark. Get a really good solid 55 there for this little segment from Mance Warner, who is in the crowd for this match, and in about that had decent reaction from the crowd, but subpar wrestling. Sean Spears defeats Warhorse in 12 minutes 13 after a perfect 10. Spears making defense number 8 of this Internet Championship. He really is making it his own at the moment with an in-ring performance of 56. Warhorse with a 37. He is better than that, we know. And after picking up another win, Sean Spears celebrates with his title. Mance Warner toasts him with his beer can on the outside. Spears leaves the ring and walks up to Mance, holds his title up in Mance's face. Mance just smiles, then slams his beer can over Sean Spears' head. Mance begins to leave before Spears can recover and do anything about it. Dark ends with a beer-sodden Sean Spears. Spears not going to be happy with that. Being ridiculed like that, having beer all over him as the Internet Champion. So let's say, well, we get a 52, that's not too bad. getting very consistent at the moment with our ratings, our show ratings anyway, with Dark. We've just got to make sure we're getting up towards the 60s. Anyway, that is it for this episode of Dark. Make sure you join me for the next episode of AEW Dynamite.